Hi everybody, this is Cindy from Ideas Times 2, and this is about take 37. I've been having some trouble filming today, and it's all user error. I can't blame this on anybody else. So this is part 2 of my altered composition notebook tutorial. Part 1, I showed you how I do the outside of the book, how I make the belt and attach the closure. And so part 2 is how I alter the inside. So when for part 1, I was doing this adorable little Wizard of Oz book. And so when I went to film part 2, I accidentally filmed it in time-lapse. And so I had to redo it, but of course I didn't realize it was in time-lapse until I was finished. So then I did it again. I started another notebook and realized that I accidentally took a photograph instead of a video. I don't even know. I'm blaming this on the fact that it's 6:30 in the afternoon and 96 degrees outside, and I haven't even had lunch yet because I just have been too busy. So that's going to be my excuse, because this has been a rough filming afternoon. So this is once again just a plain old composition notebook that started out like this. And you can see I cut it down to 6 inches by 9 inches, and then rounded all of the corners of my paper. That's just my personal preference. If you don't have the tools or the strength to cut down an entire book to that size, go ahead and leave it this size. It's not a problem. Perfectly all right. The only thing is you will use more paper because it is wider. And it's about 7.5 inches wide, and I'm using 12 by 12 paper. So using 12 by 12 paper, I can use one sheet of paper for both the front and the back. So that is entirely up to you. And I just kind of like this size. I think it looks more grown up, a little more sophisticated. It fits better into handbags or computer cases or a briefcase. Than this one, and so that's my personal choice. If you like this size, or you're doing this for maybe making one as a gift for a child going back to school this fall, go ahead and leave it its regular size. There are really no rules. I'm just showing you what I do, and if your preference is different than mine, go for it. That's the best thing about crafting and creativity, is that we all think differently. We all like things just a little different. So, the choice is up to you. So, rather than starting another one after my last faux pas, I've already started the inside of this one, and I'll show you what I've done. And so both the inside front cover and the inside back cover I've lined with cardstock, and this is also cut to 6 inches by 9 inches. I just glued it down with Fabri-Tac and rounded the corners, and I added a nice tuck spot, a nice big tuck spot on each of the front and the back to put some journaling cards, or you can put receipts or coupons or whatever inside there. And as you can see, I sewed. I did I just stitched on to the tuck spot using a zigzag stitch and brown thread. If you don't have a sewing machine, don't worry about it. It's not required. It's not necessary. It is literally just for looks. Because the pocket's glued down. The sewing is really just fake. So if you don't like the look, don't sew. If you don't have a sewing machine, don't worry about it. If you like the look of the sewing, go ahead and, but don't have a sewing machine, you can use a thin black or brown marker just to do faux stitches around the side. that's perfectly fine. So that's what I did on my last attempt to film part 2. And so the next part is the front big pocket. And so let me show you again what that looks like finished. And so in this book, you can see this has a nice big pocket here, has some coffee stained paper on it for some writing, and on the back has a little pocket with some tags, and it has a big card in there. So I'll show you how I did that next. Really simple. So you need 2 sheets of the paper, the notebook paper, and you're going to fold the first sheet to the front, just down from the top corner, and just fold that over and then glue it down. And then you're going to do the same thing to the next one, except instead of folding forward, you're going to want to fold to the back. And then glue it down. And that's important that the first page is glued forward, is folded forward, and the back page is glued and folded and glued to the back, because when the pocket is being used, you don't want the paper or whatever card you're putting in that big pocket to get caught on this paper here. It will potentially rip or get things stuck, and you don't want that. So fold the first piece forward and then glue it down. The second piece in here, fold it to the back and glue it down, and then we're going to glue these 2 pieces together with just a bead of glue across the bottom and up the side, just to that fold spot. And make sure they are, press that down well, make sure that they're glued together well, and that creates this nice big pocket here, right? So can you see in there? Nice big pocket. But not very attractive, right? So our next step is to cover that. And this is the way that I do it. I find this is super easy. So I'm going to, I think I'm going to actually fold it this way and have this facing out. This paper is so cute. So I'm going to match my corners, hold it down in the middle, make sure that is nice and sharp, that fold. And then what I'm going to do, instead of worrying about measurements and whatnot, I'm going to just tuck that behind, grab my handy dandy pencil, and just draw a line, and then just cut that. On the line that I just traced. That way there is no measuring, there is no hassle. So easy. I think the first one I did not do that way. Let me tell you that I had figured out by the second one that there had to be an easier way. So I'm just going to erase my pencil lines, make sure everything is neat and clean. Since I'll be putting this in our Etsy shop, I want to make sure that it looks good. All right, and then I'm going to glue this to the paper, but I'm going to glue just one side at a time, so that in case I need to fussy things around a little bit, that I can do that without any problem. So I'm going to do the back first. And just a bead of glue all the way around the outside, and then just squiggles through the inside. And then just slip that in there. Make sure that the bottom edges are lined up. And everything is lined up well. Press that down really well, and I'm going to put glue on the other side. A nice bead all the way around the outside of the Fabri-Tac, and then, or Fabri-Fix I think I'm using today, and just squiggles on the inside will be more than enough to hold it down. And then fold it over. And you want it close to the close into the trench there, but if you get it too far into the trench, the book's not going to close well. So and there we go, we have that nice pocket right there. So on the front of that, I'm probably going to put in fact, I think I will actually use this piece of paper. I'm going to leave the edges rough, and I'm not going to sew on this one. So kind of reminiscent of a ski slope, since that's what's in our picture on the paper. If you have journaling cards or journaling stickers, journaling cards, you can glue that on the front. If you want to leave it plain, do that. Lots of options, whatever you happen to have lying around. One thing I really like about this project is that it is inexpensive and you can use what you have in the house. So I'm going to put that there, and on the back I'm going to add a pocket, and I think I'm going to do a pocket of the same from that scrap. And because I've already done these two pockets, I've already sewn those, I'm going to sew this one as well. So I will do that, and I will be back in just a second. Okay, I am back. I just cut a little section off of my scrap paper, sewed a quick zigzag stitch, hey Lizzie, around the edge, and I'm going to glue it down to the back side of the big pocket. If you don't want a pocket here, don't put one here. That's all up to you. If you don't like the stitching, don't do the stitching. If you would rather just leave it blank, go ahead and leave it blank. But there we go. We have the big tuck spot in the front, big tuck spot in the back, a nice big pocket for a journaling card or a picture card or something, a little bit of coffee stained paper, and a pocket, and I will put some ephemera or tags or something in there. And that takes us to the next step, which is putting section dividers in the in our notebook. And so I've already pre-cut this paper here. It's Harlequin checks on one side and this beautiful trees and kind of bark in the background. I thought it was really pretty, and it goes with the rest of my my theme here. And so what I'm going to do is fold this in half, and I've cut this. It's 12 inches wide and 9 inches high, and I'm going to make sure that edge is nice and crisp. And about a third of the way through the book, just kind of eyeballing, I'm going to add this. And so you just need one sheet of the lined paper, and you're going to glue glue this in there. And so just like on the big pocket, I'm going to do just one side at a time to make sure I get everything lined up well. And once I do that, I'll glue on the front, and I always start with the back and do the back first. I don't know if it is actually better to do it that way or if it matters or not, but that is my personal preference. I like to do the back. And I'm going to slip that in there, make sure it's aligned on the bottom. And that gets down there in the trench. And this is, it'll need to be cut down just a little bit. And you can see I went a little over on that, but that's not a big deal. That's what scissors are for after all. And then we'll glue the front side down, a bead all the way around, and then squiggles in the middle, and press that firmly down. You want to make sure that it gets nice and flat. And for the section dividers, I like to use the same paper. I like those to be coordinated, but they don't have to be. And I'm using cardstock. You don't have to use cardstock. You can use just scrapbooking paper, decorator paper. It is up to you. I've done both. I've used both, and I like I like both. If the cardstock is too thick, if it's too heavy, it actually can be a little unwieldy. So whatever you happen to have around the house is going to be perfect. So I'm about then 2/3 of the way back. I think I'm going to do a couple more sheets. I'm going to do the same thing, glue the back first. Bead all the way around, squiggles in the middle. If you prefer another glue besides Fabrifix or Fabri-Tac, use what you like. But just be aware that the lined paper is very thin, and as a result, if you use a glue-based or a water-based glue, it will wrinkle a lot. So I glue now the front. And I just divide the book into 3 sections. If you would like it divided, you know, in 3 sections or 4 sections, use another sheet of paper and do, you know, divide it into fourths. If you don't like the dividers, then don't do them. And you know, give that a good press. Make sure that it's in there well. And I need to go back and trim. There we go. The corners, I like everything to be uniform. And I really like the rounded corners rather than leaving them squared off. I think it's just looks, I think it looks neater. But if that is not your preference, you know, leave them squared. If you just don't want to take the time, because when I trimmed this down, of course, the edges were all square. So I had to round all of the corners of all of the paper. But I like the look. So now we have our 2 tuck spots, our big pocket, a small pocket, and 2 section dividers that divide our notebook into 3 fairly equal parts. And now something that I like is to have tabs on these. And so I am going to use my handy dandy tab punch. I just realized the sun is now coming in my window, so I've got a lot of glare. I apologize for that. And the way that I do this, I like to have I like to do a double tab without cutting two and then gluing them together. So what I do is I take my cardstock, I fold it in half, and then put it in my tab punch. I just had it in there perfectly too, with the fold at the top. And then instead of just punching through the paper, I leave just a little bit at the top, just a hair's width, to make sure that the fold stays. And then I punch, and you can see it's got that nice fold. Let's see, hang on a second, I'm going to close the blinds and see if that gets rid of that glare. A little better anyway. And I'm going to do two, so I will punch another one out, same thing. I'm going to slip it in, just leave with the fold at the top, just leave that little hair's breadth, hair's width, so it doesn't punch through the fold. And there we go. And I did forget something. I was going to add a bookmark, and I think I can still do that without any problems. So if you want to add a bookmark, you want to do that before you put the divider in, because that's where you're going to hide the end of the thread. But glue's not fully dry yet. So what I'm going to do is just take an extra glob of glue, about an inch down, right at the, right towards the center of the book. And I'm going to put glue on top of it as well so that the paper sticks to the ribbon. Add some glue since I just pulled it up, and then just push that down, and you want to hold that so that it stays nice and tight, and that gives you a nice little bookmark there in the middle. I'm glad I remembered before the glue dried. That's what happens when you have to keep redoing the same video over and over and over again. So back to the tabs. I think I'm going to use gray eyelets. And here's my crocodile. And what I'm going to do is punch towards the edge at the top corner of each of my tabs. I'm just eyeballing this. I'm not measuring anything. The crocodile has all these little marks for different size holes and whatnot. I never ever use them. I eyeball everything. So give that a good squeeze, and do the same on the second one. And move that out of the way. So now I've got two tabs with the eyelet on there, and I'm going to glue one to each of the section dividers. towards the top of the page. And one thing to be wary of, just to be aware of, is your closure. And you want to make sure that you don't get your tab too close to the belt closure, because if you do, it's going to smush your tab. If you don't like tabs, don't put it on. If you don't have a tab punch, you can make your own. Easy way to make your own is just to use the edge of a file folder to get the shape. Just trace it, cut it out. I got my tab punch on Amazon, and it didn't work at all. And I sent it back, got another one right away. Actually, I got the new one before I even sent the old one back. They were very good about replacing that. And I love my tab punch. Make sure you don't have any excess glue, otherwise it will stick to your pages. And so there's one, and then I'll put the other one on. And we're almost done with the inside. And so this one, I don't want too far down. I want it staggered because I want to be able to see both of them. But I don't want it too far down because I don't want it to interfere with the closure. So make sure you don't have any glue seeping out. And if you do, just clean it up. And there we go. So what you do with your embellishments is up to you. I generally don't embellish too much on the front, because if you're taking it in and out of a bag pretty regularly, you might wind up tearing off the embellishments on the front. So I don't put a lot of 3D things on my covers. And so I think just the belt is enough, and the muslin on the spine is enough of an embellishment. On the inside, I started to make some journaling cards to go in the pockets, so that one's going in there. Here's my closure, the belt closure, and so that's what it'll look like when it's done. And the eyelets, I'm going to add some charms, and so I need a couple of bulb pins, or everybody has different names for those. And let's see, some charms. In here I've got a bunch of winter and Christmas charms. So got some snowflakes. Here's a tree. And another, I've got so many Christmas charms. Another little mini snowflake. And oh gosh, definitely not Santa Claus. This is more of a winter journal than just Christmas. So I think I'm going to put 2 charms on each one, and I'll just slip those on each of these pins, and then slip them through the holes, through those eyelets. And I'll put another one on through the other eyelet. because I think all journals need to have some kind of dangly something. Oops. So there we go, a couple of charms, and we're good to go. So this one is almost finished. I do need to finish the front and make the ephemera for the inside, but that's kind of all I do. So let me show you the Wizard of Oz one that I started earlier. And so if you saw part one of the series, you saw the outside, and on the inside I have this nice big pocket along with a little journaling card and a page from a vintage Wizard of Oz book. Piece of coffee stained paper on this one, and a nice big tag that I made for journaling, and it has some black sari silk on there, and that fits right back inside the big pocket. On the back I have a small tag with this gorgeous poppy paper, and inside I have 3 little journaling cards. My section dividers I left plain. If you want to add more pockets, add more pockets. You could put one on the front and on the back, or tuck spots, or an envelope to put receipts in or something. That's totally up to you. I added a bookmark with black ribbon on this one, and it has a Dorothy charm and an O on this one, and the second tab has a scarecrow charm and a Z. And on the back, this pocket is still empty. I need to make a couple of ephemera cards or journaling cards to go in there, but not too ornate. If you would like to embellish some of the pages, those line pages in there, you could use washi tape, or maybe do some rubber stamping, or maybe a collage or 2 in each of the 3 sections. But this is supposed to be a journal for writing in, for carrying around, for putting down your notes or your grocery lists or whatever, so I don't over embellish, but I do like to have a few pockets to put your receipts or your coupons or your whatnots in. So this is these are examples of my finished product, and this one I'm going to get out in the mail maybe tomorrow, and this one I'm going to put into our Etsy shop as soon as I add a few more pieces of ephemera. And the third example that's finished is this one. This is already in our Etsy shop, so you can check it out there. And hopefully this nice little winter journal will be done this evening. Thank you for watching and for putting up with my video issues, and they were all user errors, so I can't even blame anything else except for myself. So I hope you like this project. I hope you give it a shot. Thank you so much for watching. Have a fantastic afternoon. Bye-bye.